We'll be in 1 John chapter number 4. 1 John chapter number 4. Let me say I'm honored that you're here tonight. I mean that. Thank you for giving up your time to be here. But God will reward you. There's no doubt about that. 1 John chapter 4. And verse number 7, your Bible says, Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God. Everyone that loveth is born of God, and knoweth God. And he that loveth not, knoweth not God, for God is love. I was given the topic to cover the love of God. And I'm going to warn you, this will be a very different kind of a sermon, but this is a very different kind of service. Amen? I would like to borrow your imagination and take you on a journey as I step into the role of a reporter and bring you live reports of love. I was sent by my editor to cover a story because we at the Heavenly Herald had heard about an outbreak of glory. Reports were coming in all across the land about a man who was doing mighty things merely with his hand. I rushed on the scene to see what I could find, but all I could see were throngs of people standing in line. Because of the crowd, I could not move on in, so I began to ask some questions to see what made all this begin. Doing my best to gather all the facts, I noticed a man standing among the crowd with a smile that looked like forever it would last. I began to inquire from him regarding this scene. He replied, Before I met him, you wouldn't have come near me. I asked him why that reason was to be, and he remarked my body was full of leprosy. My life consisted of crying unclean until he reached forth his hand and said, Be thou clean. I then asked this former leper, what caused this man to become your great helper? He then replied to me with a very quick tongue, I don't know. I guess he did it out of love. Shocked to hear this story and wondering if it was true, I turned my attention to the crowd to try and make it through. I then asked the man in the crowd, Excuse me, sir, what is all the fuss and why is this place so loud? He replied, We're all here to see him. This place is much better than where we could have been. I said, What do you mean? Have you lost your mind? He said, I did, but got it back just in time. I said, Tell me, sir, where are you from? He replied, From Gadara is where I come. I asked him, had he already met this man? He said, yes, to the tombs he came, where I ran and ran. He told me the horrors of his life, how he ran around naked and cut himself with a knife. He remarked how Jesus came across the sea and changed his life for all eternity. I then asked this former crazy man, what would cause this Jesus to lend such a helping hand? He remarked there was nothing for him that I'd done. I guess he just did it out of love. Still bewildered at what my ears had to hear, I turned back to the crowd to see if I could draw near. A small, frail woman then reached out to me. She said, with a crowd this big, it'll be hard for you to get through the sea. I asked her, had she ever seen a crowd like this? She replied, oh yes, but I fought through because Jesus I would not miss. I asked her, what did she mean? Did she too go to him concerning some kind of need? She replied, he was the only doctor I wanted to see after having been to every pharmacy. She told me how she had spent all of her income, but no better had she become. I asked her if she went to his business. She replied, no, I fought through many with great resilience. I asked her what medicine he prescribed to turn her life around and give her more time. She told me how all she did was touch his clothes, and instantly she was made whole. I replied, ma'am, how can this be that a man would cure and charge no fee? She looked at me as if I were dumb and said, I don't know. I guess he did it because of love. Knowing that I had an editor to please, I was worried he wouldn't believe this report from me. I then saw a lad running by. To him I called to see what I could find. I said to him, slow down and tell me what is going on in this town. I inquired of him if this Jesus was to be a leader, and he said, I don't know, but he just fed us dinner. I said, hold it right there. I thought this man was to be a doctor showing much care. The boy replied while scratching his head, all I know is he fed thousands with 2 fishes and some bread. I told him his story of feeding thousands with little was insane, to which he replied, you should have seen what remained. The boy said he had to get home to his mother, but I said, wait, why does this Jesus care so much about others? He replied, I think it's like he's from above, because he sure does a whole lot because of love. Based on what I was hearing, I wasn't quite sure how to feel. I pressed on to see what others had to reveal. I saw another man to whom I spoke, sir, getting him to see you through this crowd is like a joke. He replied, Bartimaeus is my name, and getting him to see me is not my aim. I inquired, what are you here to see, and why all this publicity? He stated, happier I could not be, because once I was blind, but now I see. because in His hands I knew existed the power to heal. I asked why Jesus would make His vision alive by touching His blinded eyes with a joy that would not be undone. He rejoiced I was touched by a hand of love. One by one, others began to exclaim to me, we were lost without Him, you see. I questioned them after awaiting my turn. I prodded them to know what He wanted in return. They replied, to Him we cannot help but serve, because He gave us all something we didn't deserve. I asked what He gave that could not be gained, and unanimously they cried, love, forgiveness, and a better way. One shouted, He grants forgiveness of sin, and another rejoiced, He forgave me for where I'd been. After having enough reports to build my story, I returned to the Heavenly Herald after checking into this outbreak of glory. Not knowing what to believe or do, I was reminded there is truth in the witness of at least two. I decided not to doubt all this and accept the truth for what it is. I pondered over my hearing and seen of a man who could save, cleanse, and heal with such a loving hand. And I, much like the blind man who now saw, I found myself coming to believe it all. While I, the reporter, was sent out to investigate, I'm glad I met this Jesus before it was too late. I had set out to cover live reports of love and wound up meeting a man who was sent from above. While no one could sufficiently explain these deeds, it was truly with love that He met our needs. And in closing, let me say, He loved me when I was unlovable. He forgave me when I was unforgivable. He accepted me when I was unacceptable. Love! John 3:16. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in Him should not perish, but have everlasting life. What a love! Romans 5:8. But God commended His love toward us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. What a love! 1 John 4:19. We love Him because He first loved us. What